So now we're at 113.
Yeah.
Tan de polύ πρῶτος ide Telemachos θεοειδής hastο garen mνηστῆρσι φίλον τετιημένος dzītor ωσσόμενος πατέρ ἐσθλὸν φρεσίν ποθεν ἐλθὼν μνηστήρων των μεν σκέδασιν κατὰ δώματα θεία τιμήν αὐτός ἔχοι kai dώμασιν οույσιν ἀνάσσοι.
We have dώmασιν oīsιν ānāssoi.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yes.
got it.
Nice.
And I think we'll stop there. And I'm going to translate it in the passive, just so I can keep the word order. She was spotted, first of all, by Telemachus, who looks like the gods. I used to think this meant God-fearing, but I changed my mind.
Okay.
Any problems with
No,
that? No?
God-fearing doesn't do anything for me.
You see, he was sitting. I'm trying to do the God in this visualization mode.
Yeah.
You see, he was sitting among the suitors, sad in his own heart. May I say it this way, thinking dark thoughts.
Or is it just visualizing?
I think it's just visualizing.
All right.
Because
Visualizing his own father in his mind. And then there's a kind of a question about what he's visualizing, and all I was trying to do was indicate that this is a foreboding kind of visualization, because it has a very negative side.
Yeah. It
as
does.
it sometimes
like
does.
you have Kaka, orszáμένos.
But sure,
Yeah.
I'll go along with saying visualizing what would happen if his father, visualizing in his mind, what would happen if his father came, and literally made a scattering of the suitors throughout the palace. And I'll explain why I say made a scattering in a minute.
Yeah.
And whether he himself would then have honor and could lord it over his own property, according to one reading, or palace, and according to another reading.
So that's a men and a dad, right? His father would.
Yes, and I think it's
do
the father.
Skēdasιν, and he would have the tιμὴn. Right? Or is it his father would have the? No, it's got to be he Telemachus because of the aŭtός, right?
Yeah, I think it's Odyssey all the way through.
It's all the way through.
I suspect.
I think so too.
I suspect.
Right. Yeah.
And the aŭtός simply refers to the
I
father.
think that's right. Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Makes more sense.
And let me be a little more literary. I'll be even more literal-minded first, which is her did Telemachus first see. In other words, before any of the other suitors. And then the wording in the next line explains why he was the first to see Athena disguised as Mentes, because of where he was sitting. And then the orszáμένος, I just wanted to say that, sure, it's visualizing the father, but it's one of those proleptic situations where visualizing the father, if the father did something, so the father really is already anticipating what the subject of the next construction will be. And that's why, if you want to be fancy, you could say visualizing how the father.
Nice.
That's what I'm doing. So in the trade, we call this prolepsis. It's a proleptic kind of construction. And I don't think I can recover how I did it the first time. I liked how I did it sort of waiting to see if, or something like that, waiting to see if coming from wherever he was coming. I don't think I did the pothεν first. Coming from wherever he's coming, and then you have a very strange construction, which you would think is characteristic of the second sophistic period. That's the second century CE. And I'm talking about a situation where instead of using a verb, you use an abstract noun derived from the verb and combine it with a verb to make. To make a scattering instead of saying simply to scatter.
Right.
And that's a very interesting stylistic device that turns out to be as old as the hills. And I remember Walter Porzig, P-O-R-Z-I-G, wrote a whole book on this. And there's a big one at the beginning of the Iliad where instead of saying a sound happened using the root klung, there was klunge geneto, a sound happened. But there's so many things. Something happens or somebody makes something, but it's to make a scattering.
Yeah. So there's this beautiful thing in the Lévi-Strauss book, La Pensée Sauvage, this, where he talks about how people who talk about primitive thought say that having abstractions is a result of non-primitive thought. But there are cultures in which everything works, so-called primitive cultures in which the whole language is built on abstractions. So you put your abstraction of food in the abstraction of a basket. It's just all over the place. It's just totally bogus.
And another handy thing about abstract nouns is, of course, the fact that when you make a plural for an abstract noun, then it can be concrete instantiations of whatever the abstraction is. To give a Latin example, odium, hatred, that's abstract. But odia is specific instances of hateful behavior. And I think that's the idea here too. To make a scattering means that everybody is going gangway. Let's just scatter in every direction, which is, of course, in a sense, what happens when the moment of reckoning takes place. So his wishful thinking is very, very good visualization of what will happen. And it is a kind of foreboding.
It's a kind of naming of the scene too.
Yes.
It's the skēdāsis mnηστῆρων,
scattering of
and
the
you can
students.
Visualize that.
Yeah.
It's like a title under the picture, under the painting.
It's like every man for himself. If that attitude means everybody goes every which way. And could I mention this? The line that Aristotle thinks is the most formidable of all Homeric lines. I think I can do it. Paptenen de hekastos, hopai phugoi aipun ἐλθόν. Everybody was looking every which way to see how they can flee from sheer doom.
There's your skēdāsis.
And there's the skēdāsis. So it is a kind of.
That's when they see Patroclus dressed up as Achilles.
It's a sight to behold. A sight to behold.
So what about tετιημένος? Right? You said, translated, it's sad, but there's something else going on there, right? Is it supposed to be cognate with quiesco and like that?
I think I did that as a reflex because Homeric dictionaries just say it means sad.
Oh, really?
But we'd have to look it up. If you like, I can look it up.
But I think it's also, you translated it. You think of it as foreboding.
Tετιημένος is sad, and ωσσόμενος is foreboding.
But from his point of view, it's a positive fantasy, right?
Well, it's positive for him, but very negative for them.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what I meant, is thinking negative thoughts about what Dad will do to them.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, but I think the other aspect of it is that he's not imagining himself being empowered. He's imagining Daddy coming and saving the day, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the perfect
thinking deep thoughts.
That's the perfect setup for Mentor to put Menos in him, right? Because he has no.
Although he'll only go so far. He'll only go so far. And there's this wonderful article by Richard Martin.
Yep.
In CQ, which is not Classical Quarterly, but Colby Quarterly, and it's about Telemachus as the last of the heroes, that somehow the generation after Odysseus, and that includes not just Telemachus, but his sidekick Pisistratus, that they're not quite the same thing as the heroes who fought in the Trojan War. And one way to think about it is, this is where you start thinking of ancestors of elite family trees. Pisistratus. I think of Doug's reconstruction of Pisistratus as the ancestor, the notional ancestor of the Pisistratids. And or Orestes, the ancestor of the Panthilidae, the elites of Lesbos, and on it goes.
Okay, so here's what the dictionary,
Okay.
LSJ says. We can look up the etymology,
Okay.
I guess, but it says to be tetiaemai, to be sorrowful. Elsewhere,
Yay!
yeah, we also find, and it says tetieo to thumo, with sorrowing heart.
Yeah.
Also, hizon tetieotes, dein dane o he san tetieotes. They were a long time silent from grief.
Silent is in this case.
Yes, and it says perhaps cognate with Latin quies.
Yeah.
Yeah, good luck. Nice try.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perhaps.
So, but to me, I can't take credit for it. It was just a reflex.
Okay.
This is what happens, people out there. If you do this all your life, you don't even know why you translate it
Yes,
the way
exactly.
you do.
So
You're
it's-
just used
so
to
it's,
it.
It's a terminology from the terminology of grief, of lament
Well,
and stuff.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Have I missed anything? First time I didn't do pothen, a pothen ელθον. I love the way Daddy will just emerge from somewhere. He has no idea.